Welcome back. Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang has laid out new plans for the future of the world's most valuable company at its annual GTC conference in Silicon Valley. Those include restarting the manufacturing of an AI chip for the Chinese market and continuing to develop the technology used in autonomous vehicles. Ira Spitzer is at the chip giant's flagship event in San Jose, California, and filed this report for CNA.
Nvidia's annual GTC event here in Silicon Valley has become one of the biggest tech events in the world, and that's because of just how integrated so many of the chip makers' products are into elements of the artificial intelligence ecosystem. At a special preview of some of its latest offerings, the California-based firm showed off how its products are used in everything from factory design to robotics to autonomous vehicles.
The challenges are really in the long tail, right? The edge cases, the events that are rare or difficult. And so what a reasoning model enables the policy to do is to think through, when I'm here at this new situation, how can I solve this problem?
Those tools are used in Nvidia's long-running partnership with Mercedes, and at GTC, they announced further partnerships with automakers like BYD and Hyundai. Another Nvidia engineer explained how the company works with the sports car maker McLaren to model airflow and improve vehicle design.
This is actually an AI model. So this is an AI model trained on simulation data, and then once it's trained, it actually gives you the answer in real time.
One of the biggest headlines here involves Nvidia's business in China, where U.S. export restrictions have limited its ability to sell its most advanced chips. Now, the company's CEO says it will restart production of versions designed to comply with U.S. rules.
We've been licensed for many customers in China for H200. We have received purchase orders from many customers, and we're in the process of restarting our manufacturing. And so that's new news for all of you, and it's different than it was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, but that's our condition today.
Huang continued that he believed, the U.S. president would like the country to have first access to Nvidia's best models. He also would like the company to be able to compete worldwide. Huang also expressed excitement about the surge in popularity of the open source agent platform OpenClaw, which has rapidly gained traction among developers.
When you take a step back and think about the impact that it's had to become the most popular open project in history in just a few weeks. I mean, it took 30 years for Linux. And so this is quite an extraordinary feat. It tells you something about the interest that the world has and really the latent need, the pent-up demand for a very well-engineered open platform for agentic systems.
At GTC, Nvidia announced NemoClaw, an open source stack designed to add a security layer on top of OpenClaw. As the AI race accelerates, Nvidia wants to make sure it continues to be seen as not just a chip maker, but as the central player in the future of AI. For CNA, I'm Ira Spitzer in San Jose, California.
And for more, Brad Gastwirth, who is Global Head of Research and Market Intelligence at Circular Technology, joins us live from Delray Beach in Florida. Now, Brad, NVIDIA's GPUs, they're the backbone of AI. But with the lead times now stretching up to a year, is scarcity a key threat to the company's growth?
Yeah, I mean, Angela, it's really one of the most important questions right now. Are component delays going to affect, this entire AI infrastructure build out? I think NVIDIA, when I go to Asia and meet with all the supply chain, they're the #1 company that has secured enough components and subcomponents across the board. So, the biggest thing that they're limited to is more on the CoWoS side from Taiwan Semi. Taiwan Semi builds their chips. CoWoS is chips on wafer on substrate. I think they're limited by that capacity and some on the memory side. But ultimately, I don't think NVIDIA GPUs will be the large constraint or a bottleneck for AI development.
And meanwhile, observers are saying that the real bottleneck isn't really chips, but actually memories. So do you agree with that assessment? And how will that fundamentally shift where the power and the profits sit within the AI supply chain?
Yeah, I mean, this is another great point here, Angela. I do think memory has become an increasingly important bottleneck for many things. If you look at AI infrastructure builds, memory right now is completely constrained. Memory is actually sold out for 2026, and there's some concerns about next year as well. And we've seen gross margins for many of the component suppliers. Even if you look at Nvidia, getting almost 80% gross margins, the memory guys on high bandwidth memory, which really sits next to the GPU for AI. I mean, there's close to 80% gross margin for the memory supplier. I mean, this is, at historic levels. I continue to see memory as a bottleneck. I don't think you're going to see any easing of this year. There's just not new supply coming online, and I think this will continue to be a bottleneck.
Yeah, another issue that's come up also is, with the next gen chips reportedly costing up to $50,000 each. Do you think we're heading towards an AI arms race that only the biggest players can actually afford? And what would that mean then for startups?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I've written a bunch about, and I do think tier 2 and tier 3 players are at a significant disadvantage. I think you're right. I mean, you need to have significant capital to play right now within AI and to be a major player. And that's what, you're seeing any of these successful startups getting snatched up rather quickly by some of the largest companies in the world. I think that trend will continue. I do think it's going to be tougher for smaller companies. One, not, even just the ramp itself is quite difficult, but to get the components, they're just, on the bottom of the floor in terms of where they are, compared to the largest companies. So, it'll be hard to get components. It'll be hard to ramp. And then, obviously the money is a very important factor as well.
Yeah. So are chips still the main constraint to growth, would you say? Or is infrastructure like power, cooling, or even data pipelines, is that the real challenge now?
There's a bunch of challenges, Angela. I mean, if you look at the power constraint, that is real. I think the bigger concern is really going into next year on what it could see to the grid, especially in certain cities here in the United States. If you look at components, I still think components are going to be somewhat of a bottleneck. I mean, there's a lot of different layers within the component supply chain that, nobody was expecting this type of demand surge. I mean, even though there's expectations of significant demand, even the hyperscalers and cloud service providers, they haven't, they weren't expecting the significant growth that we're seeing right now. So I think everybody was caught off guard. I think components will be an issue. I think power. And then I just think if you look at land, finding the right places, I mean, that's been a big concern here in the States. Obviously, where you are in Singapore has done a great job getting some AI infrastructure. There's several areas. I think it'll be interesting to see what becomes the biggest bottleneck, into next year.
Meanwhile, Nvidia is restarting its China-focused chip production. Can it maintain global dominance while also effectively operating under different technology tiers for both the US and China? What kind of risk does that create?
Yeah, and I think this is another important question, Angela. I mean, what will the U.S. allow Nvidia to sell to China? Clearly they've had, different opinions and views, and we've seen shifts in the government here on what they're allowing. I think there's still sort of, a question mark on what will happen with, selling our chips overseas. I mean, the new potential legislation of limiting chips and having the government control is a big issue from a United States perspective. So, that would certainly affect Nvidia. I think it is, if you don't offer the latest and greatest to one of the fastest growing regions, you're going to lose share. I mean, it's just mathematical. It's just, they'll lose share to somebody else that will have, a higher powered solution internally or homegrown from China. And I think we've seen some of that, but, Nvidia still is the best in class. I mean, they have by far, the strongest AI infrastructure, within their components. And, I think as, this is a lot to learn on what the U.S. government will allow to be sold in the region. But if it's just the second tier type chip, they'll get growth, but they won't see the phenomenal growth in the region.
Brad, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. I've been speaking with Brad Gastwirth, who is a Global Head of Research and Market Intelligence at Circular Technology.